Let's go. Hey, 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 yo. Come on.
Welcome, everyone. Happy July 4th. That is the Fantastics Inside of Baseball show, and we're recording this on July 3rd, actually. So, and God knows when you're seeing it. But happy July 4th, everybody. Happy July 4th, Sky Dombroski. I'm Blasi. How are we doing today?
Doing great, man. How about you?
I'm doing all right, but I'm working in my radio group studios, and I'm the only one in the building here the day before July 4th.
Justifiably so, since it's like 75 and sunny.
Yes, but here's the thing: when there's nobody in the building, they decide to turn down all the climate control. So
no,
it's like 85 here in the building.
It's good. We'll work off a few pounds.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It's like some people do hot yoga, we do hot podcasts.
Hot radio.
Hot radio, that's right. All right, but you're going to welcome us here because what we need here in July, because here in the Northeast it's hot and it's beautiful today, but we're not used to all this hot weather. We need a little cooling off, but this is not the cool we want. We're talking about cold players, right?
Yeah, and a few of these guys are definitely going to be cut bait worthy, especially after the news last night that Josh Jung was sent down by the Rangers. So.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about him anyway, though.
The hitters list is really interesting. We're going to do some hitters and then some pitchers here, and the hitters list is really interesting. A couple of names I have to deal with. I've already dealt with Brenton Doyle. I talked about him a couple of weeks ago. I finally had to cut bait, and my house league format has some quirks to it, which means that because it's basically a keeper league, but there are some teams that we can't keep from year to year, so that we call them rotating teams, and all of that team is completely available each year in the draft to keep the draft kind of pumped up a little bit. And as a result, I went big on Brenton Doyle. I had to because I was drafting last. But I went big on him, so I spent a lot of assets, and it's been an incredibly disappointing season. A couple of weeks ago, I had to cut bait on him. Yeah,
and, we've talked about him a couple times this year, and nothing has really changed. He was a little overrated coming into this year, but, a 2030 guy that's just entering his prime as a starting outfielder in Colorado is somebody that you have to kind of invest something in, right?
And wait a second, speed doesn't slump, right? So at a minimum, even if you're not going to get the power return that you thought you were going to get, you'd get representative speed. That hasn't been the case either.
Speed doesn't slump, but you can't steal first. So,
you can't steal first, that's right.
He's got an OBP of 248, which is eerily similar to his rookie season performance where, we saw a 10-22 player and we thought, well, there's not a lot of batting average. There's a ton of contact issues. Sure, he has some speed, but you can't steal first. And then, in his sophomore season, he comes up and puts up a 317 OBP. Not great, but good enough to take advantage of the tools that are there. Now, this year, we've come all the way back down into the 250 range, and the power has disappeared too. So, what's going on here? Well, his exit velocity is up. His swing strike rate is down. The barrel rate's up. The hard hit rate's up. Like, all the metrics look a little better. But the combination of the fact that we probably set the bar too high anyway, because he was pretty lucky last year, and then some horrible luck this year. The StatCast expected data has him in a batting average of 245, 15 points lower than last year, and a 419 slugging, about 30 points lower than last year. Well, he's at 196 and 318, and he's starting to lose playing time.
The problem here is, and this is where I've spoken about this several times up here in the Boston market, there's a whole war against analytics. It's just incredible. And here's the thing, though, because you just mentioned it, and this is what I was looking at. If you look at the underlying indicators, you see a little bit better player than what we're seeing on the field. And some of it is luck because he's got the 245 BABIP, which is contributing to the 196. His quality of contact is up. His plate rates have not diminished at all. In fact, his swinging strike continues to improve a little bit. So he should be better than he is. This is where kind of, though, the thing with analytics is you have to know when to let go of them, right? I mean,
you do. I have some hope here still.
Yeah.
The problem is you just have to set your expectations. Like last year was about as good as you could expect to get from a player with his skill set. So the problem with that is when a player just breaks out and you see that level of performance, people automatically assume, well, he's going to get even better.
Right.
And that simply shouldn't have even been the expectation. If he gave you another, we'll say 20-25 season with a helping batting average, then that's perfectly fine. But this was always a potential risk because he is not a good contact bat. He does not walk much, despite we'll say, average plate discipline.
Yep.
So if peak was what you're paying, that's never a good situation.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Here's the bottom line for me is that you thought you're taking some risk. When you draft him, you're taking some risk that season was probably the height, or he was a little bit lucky or got a little bit more out of his skill set than he deserved to get out of it. But again, you're looking at the stolen bases and you're saying, at least I'm going to get 22, 25 stolen bases, at least.
And you still may.
And if he doesn't hit for average, fine. If he doesn't hit for power, if he doesn't hit 23 homers and he gets to 15, 16, 17, you expect at least some of a floor, especially with a third-year pro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You do. And I think it is eminently possible that he ends up putting up a 15, 20 year, which is going to be a little disappointing, but it's not horrible. And he certainly should be owned on teams.
Here's a phrase.
I think this has been more bad luck than it has been a bad player.
Here's a phrase we haven't used as much this year as we used last year, and it applies to the Rockies. There is a team malaise here. And whatever is going wrong with Brenton Doyle, it's being multiplied by what's going on with the Rockies in general.
Well, we saw it with the White Sox last year.
Yeah.
Just like a rising tide floats all boats, the converse is obviously true as well. And you get this situation where Zac Gallen came up. I thought he'd be interesting. Well, he was not. Even Ryan McMahon, I thought would be useful, and I play him in some formats during his home weeks. And he's been pretty disappointing. Just everything has been disappointing about that organization.
It's ugly at first base.
Shouldn't really surprise us, I guess.
Yeah, Togler first base, another guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, Togler, you and I disagreed on him in March, I think.
Yeah.
Which is rare for us, honestly.
Well,
the contact issues are they're insurmountable, in my opinion.
But I just think it's amplified by what's going on with the team in general. It's basically
yeah, and we see our teams go through this for stretches, just not entire seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that everybody starts pressing, and the combination of like too much stress and complete depression sets in, and it's like, all right, well, everybody's just going to suck. Fine.
But if for the rest of the year, here's the thing with Doyle, though, for the rest of the year, a 20-20 pace is not out of the question.
Oh God, no. I mean, he's on a like 12-15 pace now. It's not much of a stretch to jump that a couple. But the problem is he is starting to lose a little playing time.
Yeah.
So I can see it coming because nobody's lighting the world on fire there. So if he just has a little hot patch, he'll get right back to playing every day, and he's still playing most of the time.
And let me test one of my impressions against you and see if you've had the same impression at this point. Earlier in the season, both with starting pitching and with position players, I found the waiver pool kind of full. I mean, there were guys there, and I was mixing players in and out and, playing hot hands and things like that. For the last couple of weeks, seems like me that the waiver pool, the free agent pool has kind of dried up a little bit. There's not a lot of options. If he's out here, he looks like one of the better options if you need to take a flyer on somebody or you lost somebody to injury.
Yeah, I was going to say it's that latter thing. I think you're starting to see a lot of teams are kind of, I don't want to say playing games, but if you have a guy that you think is going to miss around a week this time of year, a lot of teams will just put him on the IL because that way you're going to get the extra All-Star break and you can bring another body up and they just get the time to rest. You're not going to risk aggravating the injury or something like that. So you get a lot of these roster games in early July.
Yep.
And, I think, well, like I'm looking at my IL in Tout Wars. I have 13 guys in the IL. Like, what do? You just keep picking up guys and trying to stay afloat until everybody comes back.
Have you had the same impression about the free agent pool, though? It seems like I was playing pitching all spring long, and there were just guys out there, and I was tempted at times to make changes. There were changes to be had that I just couldn't take. It seemed like there was a bounty of free agent options, and that just hasn't been the case since mid-June. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I've been having to put a lot more time into my fab this year than last. Last year, I was blessed with a pretty healthy team, and, it just kind of went smoothly all year, and I didn't have to do a lot. This year, I have had to do massive amounts of management, and I'm making fabulous every year, all week long, or every week, all week long. And I was probably in mid-June at 15, 18 players I was bidding on. And the last couple of weeks, I'm down to maybe 6, 7. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
All right. But let's keep Brenton Doyle on the radar a little bit, because if he starts to light up a little bit,
forget about it.
Yeah, he'll regain his playing time if he lights up a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's not far away from regular playing time and back on a 2020 type of pace.
I believe that to be the case, yes.
All right, Josh Jung sent down, but he's been cold as well, and it got really bad over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, something with that injury last year. I saw somebody post a comment on Twitter the other day that somebody should investigate Josh Jung's 2023 because it just looks completely out of whack with his other 3 Major League Baseball seasons. But it doesn't look out of whack when you look at his 2021 time in the minors, where he hit 19 homers in 78 games. Like, the kid has some power, and he definitely has some loft to his swing. So you would think at the very least you get kind of a league average batting average and some power. But with whatever happened with that injury last year, his exit velocities have gone down to, we'll say, 2 standard deviations below the league average. And he never had the raw power that other guys have.
Yeah.
So, he relied on lift and barrels and, maximizing the quality of contact. And we just haven't seen it this year. He has a 24% line drive rate, which should give you probably a BABIP in the mid 300s. His BABIP is 293. The swing strikes down. Some of the metrics look like there should be improvement. But again, we come into this is a similar player to Brenton Doyle in the sense that, not great contact ability. They don't walk much, maybe a little bit overrated, but there's also been a pretty significant amount of bad luck. If you look at the StatCast data, the expected data, the 254 batting average, which is better than league average, and a 425 slugging. Well, he's at 237 and 366, and now he's been sent down. Ezekiel Duran's probably going to pick up playing time again for the 27th year in a row, or however long he's been there. I do think that there's a player here, but I don't think that he's quite right physically. So probably best for him to sit down in the minors and try to figure things out again.
Well, it might be masking that is that the quality of contact on the 2023 season that should be investigated is significantly different than the rest of his career. And the year before that was lower too. So we could play injury in 2024 and carrying over in this year, and you can make that argument. But then you look back at 2022, and it was his rookie year, don't get me wrong. And what this looks like to me is that in his rookie year, young players are concentrating on contact, getting the bat to the ball, not striking out, that type of thing. I think after last year in 2024, I think that might have been Josh's issue here, that he kind of reverted to a young player type of mindset where I got to make more contact. I'm just going to be more of a contact hitter. It looks like he kind of readjusted to that. But those quality contact numbers in 2023 came out of nowhere and have gone away.
They did, but since we don't have minor league contact data for 2021, it does look like it came out of nowhere. But I would suspect that if you had that data from 2021, you would see that capability of around a 90 mile an hour league average or slightly better average exit velocity is there. And clearly, we're both firm believers in the old Bill James adage: once you exhibit a skill, you own a skill.
Clearly, yeah.
And if he can put up a 92 mile an hour average exit velocity, which is a good standard deviation above league average, if you can do that once, you can do it 1,000 times. So unless there's something physically different, which I have not seen that same player since then.
Physically different and approach difference as a result of the physical difference, right?
Yeah. Well, that's our supposition, but I think it's probably accurate.
Yeah, because again, those 2023 contact numbers, you're right. We're both firm believers. And once a player demonstrates a skill, he owns it. So he's capable of doing that. The only reason he wouldn't be doing that at this point is either health concerns or approach changes.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, I think so. Or both. Yeah.
Yeah. But approach changes as a result of the health considerations.
Right. And, players know if they're not 100%, which most guys are not 100% most of the time.
Yep.
So.
All right. Michael Harris.
Oh, God. Let's pour one out for Michael Harris here. Because,
I know, right?
I mean, I don't think there's a guy that I am more bummed about than Michael Harris. I think there is a fantastic player in here, and he is still only 24 years old, but he is at the point now where we should be seeing improvement, not continued degradation of skills. And that's what we're seeing. The chase rate was always poor, and now it's poorer. Yep. Up over 40% is just abysmal. And pitchers are challenging him, not only because there are a bunch of good hitters now that Acuna is back, and you got a better lineup top to bottom with the Braves, but he just has shown no ability to do anything like what we think he's capable of.
Well, this is a situation where he's shown the chase. He's shown the chase rate, lack of zone control. Pitchers are exploiting it, and he's not making any adjustments to help mitigate it.
Yeah, I mean, the exit velocity is down to league average now, and this is a time in his career when that should be improving, not getting worse. Raw power is still well above average. He's hitting the ball way too much on the ground. But again, we have a situation with a very aggressive hitter, a little bit contact challenged, having a lot of bad luck. Statcast expected data, 259, 393. He's at 217 and 328. These are pretty big gaps.
Well, to control where you're hitting the ball, you talk about the ground ball rate. To control where you're hitting the ball, you got to control your strike zone a little bit. You got to get pitchers to hit. So again,
that was, perhaps beyond him.
Yeah. Well, it seems that way because you would think in the Astros organization they would have calmed him down at this point from that chase rate, but they just haven't been able to do it. When a good development team can't get this change made in a player, it just may not be capable of him making that change. So this is going to be something we're going to have to deal with. And as long as he doesn't zone up, this is going to be the problem. And pitchers have just found it. They're beating it until he shows he can beat that and adjust to that. They're going to keep doing it.
The Braves have had a lot of young position players come up over the last handful of years. So I think that people treat them like they're an excellent offensive development organization, but most of these guys arrived pretty fully formed. You know, Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies, like we're going to talk about Ozzie Albies a little bit later on. These guys aren't appreciably different as players as they were when they showed up.
Yeah.
So I think calling them a good development organization is a misnomer. I think maybe they're a good scouting organization.
Okay, but let's do a baseline here because this takes me back to my Patriots season ticket holders day, where I'm seeing wide receivers open. If I can see them from the 300 section of Schaefer Stadium, why can't the quarterback see them? If we can,
they're not good.
if we're looking at this 40% chase rate and understanding that that's the problem, that's what's going on here, you got to believe someone in the organization can figure that out as well. But maybe they just can't get the message across.
Wouldn't you think so?
Yeah. I mean, they have a whole analytics department. I think that 40% chase rate would be a bellwether for some of these guys.
Well, man, I mean,
by the way, Ozzie Albies is a very similar hitter.
Exactly. You know, I think some teams care about it, and some teams just let guys go, and that works for some players, and for other players, Michael Harris is a classic guy. If he got sent to the Tampa Bay Rays, I would be all over the wire looking for him because I bet within 2 months he would somehow figure out how to hit.
Atlanta, when we talk about Atlanta, we don't often talk about team malaise, but that's going on there as well. And again, like with Doyle, he's going to end up in the 15, 20 type of range anyway. He's going to get that type of production in the counting columns. It's just the batting average is going to be awful. So it kind of masks the deficiencies there because he's just going to accumulate probably mid-teens in homers and mid-teens are better in stolen bases.
He is, and that batting average should come up to around league average too. He's been quite unlucky so far. He's a very fast player, and he's hitting the ball on the ground a lot. So you know the BABIP should be better. He's been very unlucky, but there is something wrong too. And I really don't think that you can roster him in most formats right now, and it's so disappointing for me to say because the ceiling is still very evident, and he's only 24. I bet he figures this out at some point. You just can't sit there and wait for it.
No. And the thing is, he doesn't do anything exceptionally well to justify going through this with him.
No, the whole thing with Michael Harris is we all thought that he was going to be kind of a 280, 20, 30 guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. And you can find 15 stolen bases and 15 homers and, all over the place in the deepest of leagues.
The aforementioned Ezekiel Duran suddenly going to get some playing time. There
you go. He's going to give you something around that rate.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, more team malaise with Kansas City here too, by the way. Yeah, nice paisan here, Jack Caglione.
Caglione. Yeah, he's in a 1-for-35 slump with 8 Ks lately. So, a lot of people are dropping him quickly after they picked him up. They're really disappointed. He's 100 plate appearances into his major league career, and people are already talking about him being a bust. And I think you're just absolutely, completely, utterly ridiculous. He's going to be a really good hitter. Already seen max exit velocity is well above league average. Average exit velocity is still at league average, despite the fact that he's been really disappointing so far. All you have to do is just look at the StatCast expected data versus what he has. 264 batting average expected, he's at 144. 445 expected slugging, he's at 237. Just give me a break, okay? Yeah, he's hitting the ball on the ground way more than we want to see. He's shown a little bit more contact issues and plate discipline issues than I thought we would see. He's 100 plate appearances into his career. Let's just slow our roll here. He's going to be a really good hitter, so be patient.
Roman Anthony was hitting, 074 just a week or so ago. The kids take time. They need time to adjust. And he's hitting, his quality contact is excellent, and he's hitting a lot of line drives. He's not completely off at this point. It's just a matter of it clicking. And, again, as you said, he's been unlucky. He's been unlucky in his home run and fly ball rate and his BABIP as well. So, and the expected stats, as he said, say just hang in there because he's going to be good.
Yeah, I think so. And this, maybe this creates a little buy low window if somebody gets fed up. I mean, we all know the owners in our leagues that are prone to tweaking and the ones that are patient. So if he happens to be on a roster of somebody that's prone to overreaction, send out some feelers because this kid is going to hit.
Yeah, it's just, and owners in your league have different personalities and different needs. So, someone might be able to sit with them for a while if they're developing players. Someone else may not be able to sit with them for a while.
One of the most important things that you can do is understand who is in your leagues and how they act and what they like and what they dislike. I mean, it's very much a personality thing. And, I really needed a closer a couple weeks ago because all three of mine went down within 2 weeks. And I called one of my longtime friends and I was like, look, man, I got that kid from Florida State he's sitting on my farm. I don't love holding guys for 3-4 years on the farm. What do you think about him for Andres Munoz? And that trade accept offer came in about 30 seconds. So it's like, you just got to know people and what they like. He is enamored with a guy like Jamie Arnold. And why wouldn't he be? Jamie Arnold's probably going to be a really good pitcher, but I needed a guy now because I'm in first place and I want to stay there. So just understand these things. If you can just know who the owners are in your league, you'll be 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And
I'm guessing you work like me. And, I traded Vlad Guerrero when he was young. And, you're not going to wait a long time. Trade prospects should be done for development and should be done to help your team, but they also should be done for trade chips as well.
Absolutely. I think that I'm far more likely, 10 times more likely to trade a prospect than to keep them.
Yeah. Because I'm not doing development. I'm trying to win championships.
Even if you're the best prospect development guy in the world, what is your success rate on them?
Yeah.
1 in 5, 1 in 10? The odds are not in your favor.
And my feeling, there's going to be, I don't care how big the prospect is. I mean, there have been guys, Skeens has been a guy. We go back to Strasburg and Harper, those guys. There are generational talents that come along. And yes,
Strauss is the one guy I did hold on to. And of course, that ended up not working out in the end, too.
Yeah, exactly. So those are guys you hang on to. Otherwise, next year, there's going to be a prospect you haven't heard of that's going to be huge. And it's just like their prospects come all the time. So don't be afraid to trade the guy for a championship, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. Yes.
It was the most painful test of that was me last year trading Ellie De La Cruz. It was like,
well, yeah, but I mean, you have to give to get always too, and I think people forget that sometimes. Some of the offers I get, I think they've definitely forgotten it. You do have to actually give up something of value to get something of value.
I also think to win championships, if you're in that position where you're searching for a championship and you need to trade, you have to overspend. I mean, you just got to accept the fact that at times you're going to have to overspend. You can't get fair trades and get, not going to work. You're not going to get for big names like an Ellie De La Cruz. I didn't get full market value, but I got what I needed, right, to win a championship.
Yeah, I think there's actual overspending and perceived overspending, and that's where I think the prospect stuff comes in. Because when you get a lot of hype around certain prospects, you are 90-some% of the time going to be better off dealing them in these dynasty type formats because there's no way they can live up to what that perceived value is.
Yeah.
Unless they become the best player in baseball, which sure, it does happen once in a while, but it's so rare.
Prices.
What are the odds that you're going to guess right?
Prices will never be higher, right? Move a guy. Speaking of which, Roman Anthony, who's a guy I decided to hang on to because I had opportunities to trade him.
Roman Anthony, huh? Yeah. This Red Sox team is really rather interesting right now.
Oh, that's a word. Yeah.
Well, you guys are too close to it.
Yeah.
If you're looking at potential, there is a lot of it there.
It's true, but it's so messed up.
Yeah, well, again, you guys, you're so close to it, and I know how that media market is. It's all encompassing. So every little negative thing is magnified, and it just gets, it's like a cesspool of nonsense. And the converse happens as well.
Did you
when
watch
everything is great, everything is just the best thing ever, and we're the greatest ever, and this is how it's going to be.
Did you watch the game last night?
No, I did not. That's my mother's birthday. So
it's just like, it was so typical Red Sox at this point. They're just so messed up. They're a great Stratomatic team. They're a great, highly talented team.
They're gonna be good.
Yeah,
it's just not this year, probably.
No,
but they're gonna be good.
All right,
you see this with kids all the time, man. Like, yeah, he's had 80 plate appearances and he's put up an OPS of 638. So yeah, clearly he's a complete bust. Despite the exit velocity of 94, hard hit rate of over 50%.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm in on Roman Anthony. I'm in on Marcel Ozuna too, and it's just like,
yeah. Oh, I have them both in different formats. His strike zone discipline is excellent. His contact ability is very good. The power is quite good. The speed is there. Like, he's going to be a complete player. This is a great player. I love starts like this because they might give you that last little opportunity to try to get him half the price he's going to be next year.
Yeah, prices will never be lower. That's one of those situations. And when he was hitting sub 100 early on in his career, he was still making contact. You could see it coming. You could just see it
contact coming. And hard contact.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with him.
No, fine with him too. Ozzie Albies.
Oh, you're jumping around on me. I had the wrong page up. So Ozzie Albies, I have said this numerous times.
I meant Marcel Ozuna, and I said
I'm back on Albies now. We'll go with Albies.
Okay, yeah.
Ozzie Albies, I'm on record numerous times saying that I thought he was very much overrated as a player.
Yep.
And that his good seasons have been more lucky than actually good. He's probably kind of an average to average minus contact bat with very poor strike zone discipline. His raw power is average at best.
Yep.
But because of his hitting style, which is a tremendous amount of fly ball and pull, he occasionally will hit you 30 homers, which is great. He's put up some good batting averages too, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like, it shouldn't happen because of the way that he hits. The more fly balls you hit, the more you pull the ball, the lower your batting average generally is going to be, because those are just not balls that fall into play very much. So the fact that Ozzie Albies has been able to put up a couple 30, 10, 30, 20 seasons with helping batting averages is more good fortune than it is good ability.
Yeah, and it's only 2 seasons out of his career. And he had a couple 24, 25-15, 24-15 type of seasons. And that's about where he should land in a good year. But the 2 30 home run years just came out of nowhere. They're not supported. They're
not supported. He gets injured quite a bit. And now we're at 184 games, so more than a season, of about a 240 average and about a 365 slugging. So this could be where he is as a player. This is probably the floor, roughly, this year anyway. But I think what we saw was the ceiling, and this is always the issue. People pay for ceilings.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out where the midpoint is. And with Ozzie Albies, it was always quite a bit lower than people thought.
Well, it's funny because
obviously
you have that 30-20 season or 33-13 season. People believe that's who he is, right? And that's
because he had 2 and 3 years, and the other year was an injury year.
Yep.
So since they came at age 24 and 26, you think, oh, that's who this guy's going to be whenever he's healthy for the next 6 years. I just don't see that.
Can we theory form at this point, or maybe baseball has come to this, maybe the game has changed to this point, 35% chase rate, high 30s, 40% chase rate, it's just a huge red flag. I mean, pitchers just eat you up with those type of chase rates. Even though you can make contact, his contact rates have never been awful. You can't chase because it sucks. It starts to drain your quality of contact.
Well, you get bad contact.
Yeah, exactly.
And case in point, what has happened the last 2 seasons, the swing strike rates are kind of right in line with what he normally does. The chase rates are kind of mid 30s, which is It's below average, but it's not as bad as he has been at times in the past. But what's happened is the home run to fly ball rate has dropped down under 6% over the last 2 seasons, and the infield pop-up rate has just about doubled to 15%. So all of a sudden, he's just missing all those balls because he's not disciplined. He is going to swing and be aggressive a lot. So he's not necessarily striking out a ton more.
No.
But he's hitting pop-ups instead, which is arguably worse.
Because he can make contact, and that's what keeps him aggressive in terms of the strike zone. He doesn't feel he needs to zone up because I can get the bat to the ball even if it's not quite in the zone. But the problem is the quality of contact suffers. And we've seen, you've talked about the infield flies. That's what shows up in the launch angle over the last couple of years, which is particularly high, not because he's a lift player, but because he's missing the ball and popping up balls. That's what's
and he has his second highest infield hit percentage of his career this year, and the highest was during the COVID year. So that was not a big sample size at all. So that just clearly tells me that he's missing the ball a lot, but making contact still. Like and he's barely topping it or barely getting under it. Soft contact rate, career high this year. Hard contact rate, career low this year. Yeah. And nothing is good here. And it all comes back to the fact, and this is one of the first things that I look at when I'm scouting minor league players, walk to strikeout ratio.
Yeah.
Like how well does this guy actually know the strike zone? Because that is the pillar from which everything else comes from. We talk about this all the time. How do you analyze hitters? Well, number one, do they know which pitches they should swing at?
Right.
Number two, are they able to make contact with those pitches? And number three, are they making hard contact? That's the hierarchy. So if you can't do the first thing, how good can you really be?
And I think this is particularly important with guys who show his pull profile, because pull hitters, if they get chasing out of the zone, they can get beat. They can get beat with bad contact rather easily, because you can manage a guy who's pull dependent, and he's pull dependent because his quality of contact isn't that great. His exit velocities aren't that great. He's kind of pull dependent for his power. If he is and he'll chase, he's just too easy to beat.
Yeah, he's an impatient Jose Altuve.
There you go.
And that's the difference right there. I mean, the patience, the plate discipline is everything. And people flog the Moneyball people, quotation marks, for their insistence on being able to take pitches. But it's important on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing Prospect Central, writing it this week, getting up for this weekend, and all the players involved, several of them, and this is what I highlighted. It's funny you talked about it, because their plate discipline, their zone discipline is really important, and it's something I look for in them too, because especially because I'm doing young players, I was doing 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds and teenagers, and plate discipline really impresses me at this age. I mean, it's going to get challenged as they get to the higher. None of these guys are in the high minors yet, so you got to wait and see, but even at this age, if they have plate discipline, because what happens is they're really good athletes. They make good contact. That's how they got as far as they did. And they just use that to chase. I can get to the ball. It doesn't matter. But when you're smart enough to understand you need balls you can drive, that's an important part of this.
Definitely. Like I'm thinking I actually just pulled up this page of a particular player that I scouted 3 years ago as an A-ball catcher. And I was looking at the plate discipline numbers. I was like, oh, a 15% walk rate from a catcher. He doesn't have any power yet, but he's just a kid. So I grabbed him in the league where we roster over 1,000 minor leaguers. And now all of a sudden he's breaking out as a prospect this year. He's got 11 homers in 57 games at Double-A as a catcher, walking over 10% of the time, striking out less than 16% of the time. Leonardo Bernal I think he's a pretty good little prospect.
Yeah,
and these are the things that you can look for in the low minors. If a guy can control the strike zone, other things can develop. But usually that doesn't develop.
Yeah, because what I'm looking for with young kids, teenagers, 20s, guys in the low minors, what I'm looking for is some kind of baseball sense. In other words, a lot of these guys got to where they are on athleticism and just dominating their particular arena and their particular league, maybe even in college a little bit. But when you get to the pros, you have to have some baseball sense. You have to be able to zone up. You have to know some things. You can't just go on raw talent alone. And that's what I look for, someone who has some baseball sense to go along with it. And plate discipline and zoning up is part of that baseball sense. It's very important for a hitter. And it's really important for catchers. You're looking at a catcher who has that, because catchers have to spend so much time on development on the defensive side, the fact that they're paying any attention to their hitting whatsoever in any kind of baseball IQ sense is encouraging.
It definitely is. And don't get me wrong, the whole Derek Barton, James Loney school, like there need to be some tools as well.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I want the skill set base. I really want people to, I mean, look at this list of disappointing players that we're seeing here. Out of everybody that we've talked about so far, which guy controls the strike zone? Jack Caglianone. And he's the one guy that I'm willing to be patient with out of this whole group so far.
You mentioned Roman Anthony. He's controlling.
Roman Anthony as well. Yes, definitely. Yep.
He's controlling the strike zone as well. A young kid who's struggling a little bit, but he's not getting out of his head and he's not chasing as a result of his struggling. He's staying disciplined. That's baseball IQ.
Well, it's baseball IQ and it's confidence in your ability, which clearly he has in spades. So I think he's going to be a great player. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think the same of Jack.
All right, let's go to Marcel Ozuna because he's in the Marcus Semien type of camp where there's always a slow period for Marcel Ozuna, but it usually doesn't last this long.
No, it doesn't. And again, you talk about team malaise, and I think that there was a little bit of that here. His exit velocity is down some, but it's still well above average, 91.3. Ground ball rate is up. It's its highest since 2018. The interesting thing about Ozuna this year, and this is something that we haven't really seen from him in the past, is he's been inordinately patient.
Yeah.
He is typically an average to slightly above average controller of the strike zone in terms of, waiting for a pitch to hit, but he has dropped his swing percentage by 7.7% this year. His in-zone swing percentage by 12.4%, which is staggering. I really don't know what's going on with Ozuna. As a consequence, his swinging strike rate is down to by far the lowest of his career. And that's at a certain point, it's like that's not who you want Marcel Ozuna to be.
Exactly.
You want him to be looking for a pitch and then offering at it, not letting it go by in hopes of getting a better one.
Yeah, that's why that in-zone swing rate is so important, because it's showing a lack of aggression, and that's not what you want from Marcel Ozuna. You want him to be aggressive because he's a quality hitter.
Controlled aggression. That's what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. But, he's still got a hard hit percentage, which is balls hit over 95 miles an hour, of almost 50%. Mm-hmm. So he's also been really unlucky, and that's kind of a recurring theme in most of this list as well. The StatCast expected data has him at 269, 485, which I think most of us would be happy with instead of the 242, 389, only 11 home runs to this point in just a little more than half a season. So, he's on a 20 home run pace. He hasn't only hit 20 home runs in a full season since 2015.
Yeah.
So I have to think that a hotter streak is coming, but also he's 34. So he is exiting his prime. Could we be seeing some decline here? I think we could, but he still should be much better than this. There's been a lot of bad luck here.
That's the question. But what you would see in an age decline, you would normally see in an age decline is a little bit more aggression, a little bit more pull, right? And a little bit less quality of contact, but his quality of contact is up. He's controlled at the plate, almost, as we've mentioned, almost too controlled at the plate. So he's not reaching because he's struggling at the plate.
He's not pressing.
He's not pressing. It doesn't feel like an age decline at this point. It just feels like an extended slump that's amplified by what's going on with the Braves in general.
I think so. And, look at that lineup. Even if you take Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris and say that they're not very good, I think that they're at least okay. That lineup top to bottom is pretty strong. So I think you're going to have a 2 or 3 week stretch where they just all go off at the same time. And I don't want to be in the way when that happens.
It kind of looked like that was what's going to happen when Acuna returned.
I agree. And then it just sort of fizzled except for him.
Then it fizzled. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's something else too, but
he is. But you look at what has happened with that team, and Schwellenbach just went down with an elbow fracture of all things. There's been a lot of interestingly poor fortune there, and it just seems like I could see them all getting frustrated. As soon as it looks like we're fully healthy, we're not, and I could see them all getting frustrated. But I do think that there's going to come a time in July or August where you get a couple of weeks where the Braves go 12-1 and they're scoring 9 runs a game.
I think the offense will start scoring 9 runs a game. I think they'll have that hot streak. The pitching is just so battered at this point, and they've had incredibly bad luck on there. And of course,
they were really hoping Didier Fuentes was going to be ready, and he is very clearly not.
Yeah. So they have some issues, but I still feel like, I mean, the Braves are going to be the Braves because they're just so diminished on the mound. But I think the lineup has to get hot. The lineup's too good. It's much better than it's playing at this point.
The lineup is too good. They have a star at almost every position.
And we're talking about almost every position today on.
Well, we got 3 of them. So yeah, there you go.
We got 3 of them, a third of the lineup. All right. So you mentioned age with Marcel Ozuna and age decline. Paul Goldschmidt comes up. Are we in an age decline with Paul?
Well, I think we've been in an age decline for a while, but that doesn't make him a bad player. I think that, you talk about control of the strike zone and things like that on this list. His swing strike rate is down. It's his lowest in 9 years. He's got a line drive rate of 24%. And I think he understands that on this team, he does not have to hit 30 homers. He just has to get on base, which he's been doing, on OBP at 347. It's disappointing for Goldschmidt, but it's not awful. He's been fine. The problem is in June, he has a 167 BABIP. So, okay, I mean, I think he's just been very, very unlucky of late. The expected slugging is 484. He's putting up a slugging of 425. I expect Paul Goldschmidt is going to be just fine. 8% swing strike rate. He's been his typical patient self, only a 25% chase rate. He's a good hitter. It's a good lineup. Everything's going to be fine here. But yeah, he's 37. He's not the same guy he was back, 2017, 2018.
And you can see it in the pull rate a little bit because sometimes that's an age decline symptom, or it might be a Yankee Stadium symptom. Have you seen an approach change?
I haven't seen an approach change. I think that this is very similar to the player that he was last year with St. Louis. As a right-handed hitter, you don't want to pull the ball a ton in Yankee Stadium.
Right.
You want to be hitting it the other way. Look at how many of Judge's home runs are. I mean, you got a couple Boston Twitter accounts that are constantly saying, "Oh, how many home runs would this have been a park in? Just one." Well, yeah, because he knows where he's hitting. Dumb.
Yeah.
Jeez. So, yeah, I think
guys, about Aaron Judge, by the way.
Pardon?
They're saying this about Aaron Judge.
Oh, yeah, like he didn't just hit a 440-foot bomb last night to left.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the last guy you should be flogging for. He gets cheapies.
No, he's the guy who gets.
You can't fix some people, man.
No, and he's got incredible power, and he gets some homers that aren't necessarily cheapies, but he can get the ball out of the ballpark anywhere, even if he doesn't hit it well.
Well, like the one he hit against Class A in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you could call that a cheapie if you want, but he hit a frozen rope off one of the best closers in baseball to right field in the most critical situation imaginable. So was it a cheapie? Maybe. Was it a great hit? Yeah.
No, cheapie.
Whatever. I mean, so maybe it's a triple instead. Whatever.
Cheapie's the wrong word.
It's a Yankee Stadium homer. The other team has a chance to hit him too.
Yeah, that's right. You're both playing in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah. You don't get to bat in the other park and the Yankees bat in their park. It's whatever. It's such a silly argument.
Why is Freddie Freeman on this list?
Why is Freddie Freeman on this list? Because he's been awful in June.
Yeah. Because the overall numbers look pretty good, actually. They
do. The June numbers are 200, 283, 274.
That's not good.
That is hashtag not good. He's 35. He probably, truthfully, has been declining for, 4, 5, 6 years, but it's such a gentle decline, and he's such an unbelievably good hitter.
And he fits that lineup perfectly. So he's doing what
and then, they had the postseason last year. So he's just exit velocity's up, line drives are up, fly balls are down a little, chase is up 3, highest in 9 years. Swing strike rate is up over 5%. And that, I think, is the one concerning factor here. Something that I think he's trying to fix actively because the ground ball rate is up over 20% in June. I think he's messing with his swing a little bit right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the All-Star break just kind of resets him and he comes right back out on fire in the back half of July. He's just too good a hitter. And yes, I know there are always physical issues at this point in his career. I don't think there ever will not be, but he is so talented and really has such a fantastic batting eye and idea of what he needs to do at given times. He's going to be fine. I have no issues with Freddie Freeman. He's probably can play till 40 and be just fine when he's healthy.
The Dodgers season kind of feels like an NBA season. I don't know if they've all tuned in yet.
I think you're 100% correct.
I think they're kind of floating at this point, and it's like, just get through, keep everybody healthy, get through the All-Star break, and then we'll
just get to the playoff. Just find a way into the tournament. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and I just feel they're just coasting is
They're on starting pitcher number 13. Like,
yeah.
It's been a weird year, but they're great.
No, but it's weird. They're just taking advantage of the fact that they're okay. Everything's going to be fine. Just get to the playoffs, keep healthy, and go that way. They've been taking this approach with pitchers for years, and it seems like offensively, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency in the Dodgers. Not that there needs to be. They're not complacent. They're just lining up for the postseason.
They're on cruise control, man.
Yeah.
They're on cruise control. They have been since probably about 2 weeks into April.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like. And the thing about Freddie Freeman that I still like is his quality of contact is still excellent. He's still there. He can still make contact with the ball. I just don't think there's a lot of urgency.
No, I don't think there's a lot of urgency, but I think he is trying to figure some things out right now because, what he kind of went through a little bit of a transformation about 5 years ago where he became a little less power centric. The power numbers are still there, but he's not hitting 35 home runs anymore. But he was much more adept at contact. The swing strike rates dropped off the table about 5 years ago, and now we're back up to a career high. So interesting.
On this subject, these are the last few years games played and at bats the last few years from 2021, 159 and 600, 159 and 612, 161 and 637. He's 33 years old. 147 and 542 last year with the Dodgers. How do the Dodgers keep letting him do this? This is not their team philosophy. You can't let this guy at 35 years old go out and play 159 games.
A lot of DHing, man. He's doing a lot of DHing, and that's fine.
Yeah, no.
I think, the DH, I think, keeps people kind of healthy-ish. Actually, no, he didn't DH at all last year. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I don't know.
Seems like the Dodgers' philosophy.
I feel like he probably should be playing more like 135 to 145 games a year. And maybe that's where we're heading. Last year he played 147. Maybe this year we're only on pace for him to play about 140 this year. So maybe that's where we're heading.
Because you want him in October, right? You don't need him in July. You need him in October.
As evidenced by last October. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the type of guy you want in your lineup at that point. And it seems like they've been using this philosophy with pitching for years now and just keeping people ready and trying to not run into the Braves situation where everybody's hurt.
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act because you don't want them ice cold come October. But you also want them healthy. So I think it's always a balancing act. And football teams run into this even more, I think, where you want the reps. You don't want guys sitting out the last 3 weeks of the season because you clinched a playoff berth in November.
It looks more like NBA to me. It's like, what are we doing in February? Why are we playing? Even why are these playing these games?
Why these games exist? Yeah, all right. I get that.
We'll get everybody going in April and May and get them ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, let's switch to the pitching side here. Bailey Ober. And what cold pitchers, what's the sample size? We've talked about this before, and we've done this in the last couple of weeks, holding players up to different angles. And I love to look at hitters at 28 days and 21 days and even 14 days and just get different looks at them. It's a little bit more difficult with pitching because we run into small sample issues, don't we?
We do, and that's why I took 5 weeks worth of data.
Yep.
So that's the sample size that I use to call this list. And of course, as soon as I sent you the list, Bailey Ober went on the IL with a hip impingement that he's been trying to pitch through apparently since June 12th. So, yeah, nice of you to let us know, buddy.
Yeah, this is always the problem, isn't it? And in this day and age, it seems like, listen, when I grew up, and maybe even when you grew up, these guys wouldn't even tell people they were hurt.
Well, you might still find out after the fact, which is what we did here.
Yeah, exactly. So, why are players doing this at this point? If you're not right, take your time. By the way, if you'd taken some time a month ago and just straightened this out, would have been all set.
Why are they doing it now? Because they're getting flogged in online forums now, which of course didn't exist when you and I grew up because it was a better time.
Yeah.
You have to give a reason for it anymore. You have to. You can't just say, I sucked, sorry, because then, you end up getting fan pressuring and you get cut or whatever. So you have to say something, it's your livelihood. And he was trying to pitch through it. A lot of guys try to do that. And you don't always
like the NHL where we find out after the playoffs that a guy's been playing with a broken rib or
a concussion or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. It's a different sport and it's a different level of scrutiny.
In the NBA when we find out he was
different level of scrutiny, man. And baseball, the scrutiny is both less and more because it's every day. So
Yes,
he was
that's
talking about it.
that's the nature of the sport. We're not the NBA, the NHL, certainly the NFL are about the games being played, not exclusively about it, but that's what we focus on. In Major League Baseball, it's more of a novel than it is the actual game of that day. We're paying attention to the news flow, so we want to know why this player isn't pitching well or why this player isn't playing well.
Oh yeah, man! It's comic books and 20-minute sitcoms versus 3-hour movies and 800-page novels.
Yep.
I mean, these are different things.
Yeah,
And,
we're much more on top of the players in Major League Baseball, I think, because we have a lot of time to be on top of them.
well, for sure. But it appeals in a different way. But getting back to Bailey Ober, the same issues that are omnipresent with him are present now. He's allowing 2 home runs per 9 because he allowed 14 home runs in June, most of which while trying to pitch through this hip issue.
Yep.
But the problem is that's always an issue. Like, his ground ball rate is terrible. And in the summer, he usually runs into some issues occasionally where he just has a day where the guys square him up when he's in the zone. His control is great. Swing strike rate's down, but he's still missing bats. Chase rate's still above average. Swing strike rate's still above average. Walk rate's still well better than average. So he's a good pitcher that is flammable. So when he comes back, I think he'll probably be fine.
Well, because he's the 3 pillars. He can strike out some guys. He doesn't strike out a ton, but he can strike out a guy when he needs to. He's pretty good with walks. He just can't keep the ball in the ballpark because it's 50% fly ball rate for him. And it's like, he can't live like that.
Well, you can, but remember, was it last spring, I think, where people were talking about Bailey Ober as a top 20 starter and you and I just laughed?
Yeah.
Like he isn't dominating enough to be that. And you can tell that will never happen. Like, his ceiling is basically what we saw in 2023 with a 3.45 ERA, about a strikeout per inning. He went 8-6. Like, okay, fine. He's a fine pitcher. Good whip. He'll get some wins. He's going to strike out sort of a league middling kind of a number, but he's going to have some bad starts. And this is just who he is. He's a mid-rotation starter at best. He's not going to be anything different than that. So it was just comical to me when I saw him rocketing up draft boards because he had like a good couple spring training outings or whatever. Just goofy stuff.
So just to ignite you this week for the fun of it, depending on the format, in Roto, he plays better than he does in a points league or in a head-to-head league.
Of course he does.
Because he's more flammable.
Yeah.
And that'll play itself out over the course of a season, but on a week-to-week head-to-head of points league, you're going to run into problems on given weeks, and you can't afford that.
You can. I think he's just a really high-quality streamer, to be perfectly candid.
Yeah, but he's a streamer, but in the case, I mean, yeah, you want to keep him out of Colorado. You want to keep him away from really good offenses, but you never know. Because of the home run volatility, he's one of these guys. He's hard to stream because you don't know when the bad start's going to come. You don't know when the 2-homer start is going to come.
Well, in a 2-homer start with as few guys as he walks, it's not the end of the world for him. I mean, that could be a 6-inning, 3-run start, which is in this day and age perfectly acceptable. So I really don't have a lot of issues with him, except I kind of keep him away from the top 5 offenses and the worst couple parks. I don't pitch him in Cincinnati. I don't pitch him in Coors. And I don't pitch him against the Dodgers, the Yankees, people like that. So, he's a perfectly good pitcher.
Zac Gallen is experiencing a career-high ERA, a career-high xFIP, a career-high xERA, and how much of that is over the last 5 weeks?
Well, I mean, not all of it, because he's been pretty volatile all year. And the problem, and this all goes back, like, we have recurring themes of the things that we talk about, the things we think are important. And on the hitter side of things, we talk about the plate discipline. And I think that's like the core of who hitters are. It doesn't mean you can't be good without it, but it is sort of the most important thing. Now, with pitchers, it's not putting guys on base via the walk. Mm-hmm. And Zac Gallen was early in his career, he was very volatile because of the walk rate. And then we saw it improve significantly in 2022 and 2023. It was much better than league average. He became an ace. And then last year it regressed. And that, I guess, in retrospect, is kind of a warning sign. He was able to still pitch very well because he was keeping the ball on the ground better than he ever had before. So now this year, the walk rate regresses further. The ground ball rate regresses again back to kind of where he was on average, or even a little worse. So you're getting more home runs to go along with more walks. And this is what happens with walks and home runs. You get a 5.5 ERA.
Yeah. And he's been somewhat unlucky with the home run to fly ball rate, but this is what it comes down to. It's just like walking guys and giving up homers. It's a bad recipe.
It is. And the exit velocity is up significantly over the last couple of years. Chase and swing strike rate are down this year. 2 out of his last 10, he's had quality starts. And I've seen people say, well, his last start, I think he went like 7 innings, 1 run, 10 Ks or something like that. That he's turning it around. He's going to turn it around now. And I would say no, because the control issues are still present. He just didn't walk a lot of guys. And it was the highest exit velocity he allowed all season, 96 on average. And he escaped damage because of some good fortune. So I am not back in on Zac Gallen, despite the good start earlier this week. I think that the problems persist, the lack of control, the sudden inability to keep the ball down. These are going to be problems. So I am definitely out on Zac Gallen. There's something wrong.
I'm just looking at pitch deployment because when you see changes like that, and in that zone where the control was really good, it was a 15% cutter that he was throwing. He hasn't come close to that since. 9% in 23, 3% in 24, 6.8% this year. And the knuckle curve is still there. Fastball is still there. Those distributions have been pretty similar, but for some reason he had that cut fastball in there, and he didn't carry it forward for some reason when he was effective with it.
Yeah, I agree. And the only positive pitches that he has right now are the fastball and change, positive value pitches. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with Zac Gallen. It feels like there's some kind of physical issue. But, he's managed to keep making starts most of the time, 31, 34, 28 the last 3 years. And he's made all 18 so far this year. So,
yeah, and that change hasn't been particularly good this year. That's been a difference for him as well.
It's been okay. It's positive value. It just hasn't been great. And it's been actually getting a little worse each year of the last 3.
But he hasn't been able to depend on it and lean on it as much as he has in the past because it's not
Correct.
as good as it has been in the past.
Correct. Yep. But really, when it comes to Gallen, it all comes back to the walk rate.
Yeah, and what happens with pitchers is if a player drops out of the orchestra, things change across the board.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Because it changes their whole approach. And by the way, we talk about control, and control being mechanical or fear. And when one of your pitchers drops out, or you don't have the stuff that you have, or you can't go the way you want to go, some fear creeps into it a little bit, and the walk rate comes up because you don't want to go in with pitchers that you consider secondary pitchers for you.
It's true. And you know what? An interesting thing here is that his in-zone pitch percentage is actually the second highest of his career. But he just can't get swings and misses when he needs them anymore.
Yeah, and that's going to lead to walks because
exactly
happens.
Yep.
Luis Castillo.
Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're having fun, as my buddy says.
Yeah, it's just like Luis Castillo for us from a fantasy standpoint is always all over the map.
I just, people say, oh, I hate that I was right about this. I don't hate that at all. Nobody hates that. You like being right about stuff, even if it's about something negative.
Yeah.
And I've been out on Luis Castillo. I was out on him last season. I was out on him this season. I haven't owned a single share in like 3 years. So he became clearly a different pitcher consciously when he went from Cincinnati to Seattle, where, he knew in Cincinnati he had to keep the ball on the ground. He didn't mind walking a few more guys. That's fine, as long as you keep the ball off the fat part of the bat. And he did that very, very well in Cincinnati, especially when you consider the park. Having a home run to fly ball rate of under 1 for his last 2.5 seasons in Cincinnati is a crowning achievement. He was an excellent pitcher. In my opinion, definitely was a top 12 pitcher in the league at that time. And he went to Seattle and decided that he could get away with a 15 to 20% lower ground ball rate, which was true for a little bit. So he started walking much fewer. And I think it worked out great. But we've had some degradation here the last couple of seasons. And this year in particular, the walk rate has ticked back up. The ground ball rate is coming up a little bit. But if you look at the xFIP, and I think that this is where you'll see how good he actually has been. And I don't think you use xFIP as a literal number, but you use it as a trend line.
Yeah.
And the year of the trade, when he came to Seattle, his xFIP was 323. 2 years ago, 381. Last year, 382. Okay, perfectly acceptable. A good, solid number 2, number 3 pitcher, which, by the way, much lower than he was being drafted, which is why he never ends up on any teams of mine. But that's where I think he sat. Now this year, 435. Yes, he's put up an ERA of 355, so it's been masked. But I really think there are some issues here. The exit velocity allowed back in the Cincinnati days was 86, 87, well better than league average. Last 3 seasons, 90, 89.7, 90.3 this season. The barrel rate is up over 10% for the first time. Hard hit rate has jumped 5% almost to above 45%. Like, these are not good things. The StatCast expected ERA has gone 330, 380, 390, 470 this year. These are problems. The velocity is down 2 full miles an hour over the last 3 years. And he's actually increased the usage on that pitch. So its effectiveness is declining every season because velocity matters. Swing strike rate is down 3.5%. Chase rate is down 1.7% over the last 2 seasons. Luis Castillo is diminishing before our eyes, and people still treat him as an ace, and there is no way, shape, or form that he is that.
It's all there in the swinging strike rate. It's all there in the chase rate, strikeout rate, walk rate. And people, it's been kind of masked by the fact he's only given up 1.1 homers per 9 this year, which is an improvement for him over the last couple of years. But that's on a sub 10% home and fly ball rate. He's been lucky. It's been masked by that. When the
He has been lucky. The home park helps him.
Oh, it helps, but he's given up 12 plus in Seattle the first 2 years there, 12% plus. When that starts to regress to around 12% or 13%, the ERA is going to go nuts.
Well, you're definitely going to see some elevation there. He has 7 of 9 quality starts right now, which is why I would say that if you own Luis Castillo, this is a very good time to be shopping him, my opinion.
Yeah, but Seattle in the spring is a lot better than Seattle in June and July. Seattle's better than a lot of ballparks. It's not Cincinnati, but every ballpark gets worse in June and July.
Well, he plays half his games on the road, and he's going to go to that little bandbox in Sacramento a couple times. And
yeah,
I'm just not super optimistic about the rest of the way for Luis Castillo. Maybe he recaptures some velocity, and I'm wrong. I'm willing to take that gamble. I am definitely unloading any shares I might have of him right now.
Quality of contact has slipped. Again, the only thing holding him down right now is that sub 10% home run to fly ball rate. And when that regresses, which it will, because there's nothing supporting a reduction in his home run rate, when that regresses, except maybe cold weather or beginning in the season, when that regresses, the ERA is going to go up a little bit. So you're right, time to sell. That 364 from last year is going to be tough to repeat.
I think it is. And, we talk about the 3 pillars of how we value pitchers. And number 1 for both of us is walk rate. He's gone from above average to average, roughly. Then can they miss bats? He's gone from well above average to around average, maybe slightly better. Can they keep the ball in the ballpark? He's gone from 4 years ago being excellent at it to being below average at it. So at best, this is an average pitcher, and an average pitcher has an ERA of 4 to 4.10. So, okay. That's where the expectation is for me.
And if we look at it and we put a thumb over the name, we don't know it's Luis Castillo. We're looking at a 3 walk rate, 3 per 9, and we say, yeah, okay, not exciting, but okay. Home run to fly ball rate of 1.28, okay, not exciting, but okay. He only strikes out 7.3.9. No, I can't do those 3 together.
You give me an over under for 4.0 the rest of the way in ERA, and I'm taking the over.
Oh, over 4. I don't know. It seems perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
Clay Holmes, this is not the Met pitcher I was expecting to see today, by the way.
I talk about Clay
Holmes. I was expecting to see.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you expecting to see?
He's sucked lately, hasn't he?
Who, Holmes?
No, David Peterson.
Oh, no, David Peterson's been fine. He was on the hot list last week.
He was on the hot list. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think.
Am I watching the wrong thing here? Is that the thing? I must be.
I don't know. But Clay Holmes has been great. But all you have to do to see where I'm going with this is xFIP of 4.12, ERA of 2.99.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think he's better than his xFIP. I think he can give you sort of maybe league average performance, which I suppose is around 4.10. So maybe I'm just incorrect with myself. But he's an excellent ground ball pitcher. Yes, he can't get the 60 to 75% ground ball rates that he got as a reliever, but he's still at 53.5, and that's very, very good. So he can keep the ball in the ballpark. The walk rate, it was always going to be an issue as a starter. So he's at 3 3/4 per 9. That is almost untenable, except for the fact the ground ball rate mitigates the damage there.
Yep.
But he also doesn't really get strikeouts. He has poor control, very good ground ball rate, poor exit velocity allowed, poor swinging strike rate. That's not a really good mix. And it's getting worse. In his last 4 starts, 20 innings pitched, 16 walks. This has always been an issue with Holmes. Everything he throws moves a ton. So he kind of, and I remember this when he was the closer for the Yankees, the catcher would just stick his glove in the middle of the plate and the ball goes where the ball goes.
Yep.
Holmes doesn't know where it's going. So how can the catcher know where it's going?
This is what I like about him as a starter, though, because I think he can survive the second time through the lineup and even the third time through the lineup better than most because you can't scout him. I mean, you maybe know what he's going to throw, but he doesn't know where it's going to go, so you have no idea where it's going to go.
And now we come in to the secondary level of problem, now that you say that, because I agree with what you're saying. But he's been a reliever. So how many innings is this dude going to pitch this year?
Yeah, true.
He's at 93 innings already, and his max was, I think he had 128 innings pitched back 7 years ago. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that he can exceed that by 10% or so. What does that leave here? He's got 50 innings left.
50, 140 after 63 the last 3 years. Oof.
It does seem like a lot, but he has done it in the past. So I'm being optimistic and saying maybe he can give you 140. So you've got what, like 8 starts left of 6 innings to start? Is that enough to hang on to him? Can
the Mets manage him? And the Mets are having their issues as well.
They are, and they're staring at a Phillies team and a Braves team that are actually pretty good.
Have they lost lost 15 in the last 16 or something like that?
Something like that. And, you know,
So
they're
they
hoping to
can't
get
afford
Sean
to
Manaea
get
back.
some space to hold him for the end of the season. But
well, I mean, they are expecting some reinforcements on the pitching front over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Sean Manaea
comes back. I don't think you can bank on Clay Holmes being a starter the rest of the year. So despite the fact that I think he's okay, I'm probably shopping him. There's got to be a Mets, if you're on the East Coast, there's got to be a Mets fan in your league.
Or a jealous Yankees fan who's watching him pitch well.
We don't get jealous, man.
Nope.
We're not jealous of anything.
No, I just did a show with a couple of Yankees fans, baseball card collecting show, and they were jealous about our catcher here with Red Sox. It's like, let it go.
Those aren't Yankee fans. They're not Yankee fans.
Yeah, not Yankees fans. David Peterson, by the way, has given up 5 runs in his last 2 starts. Just so I know I'm not crazy.
I think that those were both after we did the show last time. Yeah. It was about what 9 days ago or something.
Chris, I just want to make sure I wasn't being crazy because I have
no crazy pills.
I have him in the league with Michael Waldo, and it's just like it's been. I've can remember grunts the last 2 starts. So
let me go through my notes. Oh, David Peterson. Yeah, 7 of his last 9 quality starts on June 26th.
No, he was pitching really well, just not lately.
See, I save everything from every show we've ever done. I have all my notes.
Oh, I
need to know what I said.
I have all the notes too, and what I love is going back and when I'm writing Prospect Central, I love going. All the Prospect Centrals are up on the site at insideofbaseball.com. So you can check out how good I've been for the last 10, 12 years.
Oh, yeah. Same with me. And what I hate is reading any comment I ever made about Michael Harris.
Yeah, there you go. It's all up there. It's like we're not hiding anything at this point.
Good and bad.
All right, Jameson Taillon.
Yeah.
Another guy we never really know where he's going to land.
Well, and here's my cautionary tale about Shane McClanahan, because Jameson Taillon is probably the best case scenario for a second elbow ligament repair.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about all the guys that have had it done twice. The success rate is, shall we say, poor. So I am concerned about one of my favorite pitchers. He's still so young. I don't think anybody else has ever had it that young twice.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some hope, but I'm concerned anyway. So, Taillon. Career low ground ball rate, which, as we know, is a problem in Wrigley.
Yeah.
His control is excellent. It always has been. I think he was average 1 year. He's always been better than average to excellent in terms of limiting walks, which helps mitigate the ground ball rate. But, still poor swinging strike rate. The one thing that is kind of carrying him this season to mediocrity is the fact that he actually dropped the velocity on his changeup 1.5 miles per hour. while maintaining fastball velocity. And that differential has allowed the change to give him enough of a swing and miss pitch that he's surviving. But survival as we enter summer in Wrigley Field, not necessarily what you want to be looking at. And 6 home runs the last 3 games started. He only strikes out under 7 per 9. There's only so much not walking guys can do when you are not missing bats and a lot of people are hitting homers off you. I'm just not in here at all.
That improvement on the changeup had to happen, because if he's working 92, low 92s at that point, and he's only got a 6 mile an hour delta, that's just not going to work in the majors. Okay.
And this is a kid that was throwing 95, 96 before the second TJ. So this is what I'm talking about, man. I mean, there's only so much you can do physically if you keep replacing body parts.
Gavin Williams is a guy, and it's kind of like the guy the Red Sox got in the Rafael Devers deal. It's like a promising reliever that a lot of people had a lot of hope for, a promising starter that a lot of people had a lot of hope for, but it just hasn't really coalesced for him.
He's perfectly capable of throwing some brilliant outings on the rare occasions that he has any modicum of control.
Yeah.
But the ground ball rate's gotten to be good. It's above average now. And he can miss bats. You know, his stuff is really quite good. The swing strike rate is probably a little lower than it would be because he's just so wild. And this is the problem. That is the first thing I look at with a pitcher. And, you know, I scout minor league prospects for that one league where we roster 1,000 prospects. So I'm looking at pitching prospects in the low minors. And anybody I see that walks 4 per 9, I'm just not in. I'm not in. I don't care how great the stuff is. Sure, someone will figure it out as time goes by. Most of them will not. And Gavin Williams has never figured it out. You know, we thought last year he dropped his walk rate to 3.8 per 9. And we're like, okay, well, just a little bit more and it's probably going to be good enough. And then he regresses to 5.1 per 9 so far this year. It's just not good enough. The control is not good enough. And he cannot succeed at the major league level with that level of control.
He's not doing any of the 3 pillars particularly well. If you get a guy who strikes out a ton of guys or throws a ton of ground balls, you can live with that walk rate a little bit. But, you know, the Dylan Ceases of the world, and I'm struggling coming up with a ground ball pitcher that would do it. But he doesn't do any of that.
Clay Holmes?
Who?
Clay Holmes.
Clay Holmes. There you go.
Like Clay Holmes is probably like what Gavin Williams wants to be with better stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you could up his game in any of this, if you could up his strikeout game just a little bit, if you could, I mean, the walk 5.1 walks per 9 is not going to fly. It's got to be less than that. If he's sub 4 and he's striking out 9 like he did last year, that's viable. I mean,
well, you know, I think honestly, who he probably wants to aspire to is right-handed Robbie Ray, where Robbie Ray at times can succeed with 4 and 5 walks per 9 because he's missing bats at a league leading rate. You need to have that level of ability to be able to sustain kind of a really poor walk rate like that. And Gavin Williams' stuff isn't that good. And at five walks per 9, all you need is 1 mistimed hit and you're out of the game. And not to mention the fact that walk rate makes it so inefficient that you can't get deep in the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which is more and more of a problem in baseball these days. I also think we have to identify when there's a walk problem, you got to identify mechanics or fear. And he's shown no ability to control his walk rate, even in the minor leagues. This is a mechanical issue.
Oh, yeah. This is not fear. This is incapability. Incapability,
right. Yeah. So if you haven't taught that at this point in his 3rd major league year, or I don't know how many pro years since 2022, if he hasn't calmed that down, the mechanical part of it down to any degree at this point, what is the hope he's going to do it to any degree going forward?
Well, yeah, and it just becomes what was the word that Christina Carl used to use? Wish casting.
Wish casting.
You're just hoping that the light bulb goes on somewhere. And I just, you know, I'd rather bank on some skills than blind hope.
And there's just too much else going on in the free agent pool. And I mean, again, it's dried up a little bit recently, but for the past couple of years, young pitchers are easy to find. You can find pitchers. You don't have to wait out Gavin Williams. You can go find a guy who's good.
Well, and you know, as we talk about cautionary tales with walks, I will point everyone to what I said last week about Jacob Misiorowski and what happened yesterday. He is going to struggle at times with that control. Yes, the stuff is fabulous, and he could be that right-handed version of Robbie Ray that I'm talking about, with just unbelievably fantastic stuff where he can succeed despite very poor control. But there are going to be bumps along the way. How long did it take Robbie Ray to become good? years.
Right.
So, let's not get carried away with this stuff. It is very important to keep your walk rate around 3 per 9 or lower. It's vital. And these guys that walk 4 and 5 men per 9, I'm just not in. It's going to be too much of a standard deviation between what you need and what you get all the time.
For pitchers like Mizorowski or pitchers that you pay a lot for, there's something more than good. You need consistency. You can't be the Dylan Cease of the world and give up, a bad outing every third or fourth outing.
You mean like yesterday? Yeah.
Like yesterday, yeah.
He suddenly couldn't miss bats yesterday. I don't think he walked a guy.
Oh, yeah, he's got all kinds of problems. Sometimes it's walk, sometimes it's not missing bats. Sometimes
I think his primary problem is being on my tout team this year, because that seems to be the only consistent factor with anybody struggling.
So you can take, if you want to send a tip to Sky Dombroski to cut Dylan Cease, I can do it too because I own him in one league too. So if you want to send us money, we'll cut him.
He's my number one starter right now because my top 5 are on the IL.
I've got him and Flaherty on one team. So
oh god, Jack Flaherty, I probably would cut.
Yeah, the Michael Waldo league. I've got him and Flaherty. Yeah, I would cut him too, except there's no one out there to call.
I was going to say, hey, you have to replace him with somebody.
You got to replace him with somebody. What the hell are you going to do?
That's true.
Yeah. All right, head on over to InsideOfBaseball.com. Everybody have a great 4th of July, by the way, but check us out. All our writing, I'll have a Prospect Central up on Sunday. And Sky will be writing too. And of course, our writers are going every day, and you can get samples. If you're a non-subscriber at the baseball blog at InsideOfBaseball.com, you can get samples of all the emails that we send out to our subscribers every day with dozens of player notes on there. You'll get 4 or 5 of them, but you see what we're doing over there. Plus, check out our tools, the way we help you win championships. Not too late to join. We're not even at the All-Star break, Sky, right? Just keep digging, right?
You have to. You got to just keep your head down, keep plugging away. It's a long season.
And this is the time to get serious, right? When it's early enough to be able to affect change on your roster, now's the time to get serious. Don't wait another month.
There is still time. So get rid of your shares of Luis Castillo and Clay Holmes and Luis Severino and pick up some guys that have some skills.
And Bailey Ober?
Bailey Ober, I think, will be fine when he comes off the IL. My hunch would be. I just don't know how long that's going to be. Max Meyer had a very similar problem that ended up being a torn labrum, and he chose to have surgery. I don't know that that's what's going to happen with Bailey Ober. It could just be an impingement, which could be fixed in a few weeks, or he could be out for the year, or anyone in between. So I'm not sure because the news just came out yesterday. So.
All right, that's it for us. Let's say bye before we run out of music. We'll be back. Everybody stay tuned to InsideOfBaseball.com and keep up with our blogs. We'll talk to you later. Have a great 4th.